Welcome back to the Freaky Deaky, friends and fiends. This week we're diving into part one of what is sure to be an ongoing foray into the realm of little folk. I spent a great deal of time combing through cultures all over the world and was absolutely astounded by the sheer volume of lore that surrounds these beings. It seems that practically every single culture around the globe has some kind of intriguing tale about little people. In part one, we'll be taking a peek into the Duendes of the Philippines, the Aluxes of Mayan culture, and Leprechauns and Fairies from the Celtic side of things. Stay tuned till the end for a glimpse into which cultures we'll be looking into next week in part two. I can honestly see this being upwards of a 10-part series in the future because, like I said, there is just truly so many different names for these entities, and a lot of them bear some striking similarities. It'll be fun to unravel over time. But for now, we're diving into Duendes, Aluxes, and Leprechauns in just a moment. We'll see you on the inside.
You are now entering the realm of the Freaky Deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically.
Folks, welcome back. My name is Scott, and I'm joined, as always, by the world's wettest and sleepiest blanket, Chrissy Chamomile. How you doing over there, Christian?
What the fuck did you just call me?
I called you Chrissy Chamomile.
I have never been called that.
That makes sense. Yeah, it'd be weird if you were.
I was doing okay until you called me a weird. You're just trying to keep me from saying I'm doing wonderful.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, in general, we've been told that people fall asleep listening to this podcast, and not like we're so boring that people fall asleep, but they'll actually put it on when they're going to bed because our voices are soothing. And so thanks for that. Also, shout out to the folks on YouTube or the listeners of the show that go over to YouTube to check us out on video, and every single one of you comments that we look nothing like you expected. Everyone seems to be in complete and utter shock when they see our faces, and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Faces for radio. Nevertheless, we persist. It's fine, really. We appreciate you guys tuning into the YouTube, regardless of how ugly you find us. It truly is a blessing. So, like I said, I originally just wanted this to be a two-part on some little folk, and it was actually going to be a one-part. I was just going to do an episode on little people, but there's so many different, I swear to God, I found like 20 different cultures around the world and different names for these little entity people. So I'm like, you know what? It's not only going to be a one-part. The next 2 weeks, this week and then next week, we're going to do part one and part two, but over time, we're going to dive into this series more, and this series is actually titled Tiny Little Folklore. So this is part one. At the end of the episode, we'll kind of get into what we're touching on next week. But for now, we're getting into the Duende of Filipino culture, which is kind of weird because I thought Duendes, all this time, I thought Duendes were just more like Mexican culture and shit like that. I didn't really fully understand that.
Spain used to run the Philippines.
I guess that would make sense then.
Yeah.
That would make sense. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to dive into a bit of the culture, a bit of the information regarding their thoughts on these entities and stuff. And then to close out each culture, we're kind of touching on a couple of stories. Now, for the Aluxes, not too many stories to be found because that's Mayan culture. You got some kind of folk tales that I was able to pick up, but nothing with actual personal, go on Reddit or something, find someone, be like, I saw on one of the Aluxes.
The Aluxes, what's that?
It's Mayan.
Interesting, because when you said it like that, I was thinking the Aleutian Islands.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. That's how it's pronounced, but the spelling of it is Aluxes.
Of course, there's an X in there. It's Mayan.
Of course. So before we get into that, folks, if you're new to the show, we ask one thing of you, and that is that you check it out in its entirety. And if you're a fan of what you hear, you slap a 5-star review on that bad boy. Wherever you are listening, it truly does help us get the word out and spread the good news of weird things all along the world. And you can be a part of that. Very simple. If you want to get in touch with us or talk to us or suggest episode ideas, anything of that nature, you can find us at Freaky Deaky Pod, pretty much wherever. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube if you want to call us ugly. And also join the Facebook group if you want to chat with us one-on-one or with a group of other like-minded weirdos. It's a fun group. It's a fun group we got. Anyway, so with that, all that out of the way, let's get into some of the Filipino culture and the Duendes. The Duende is a mystical creature deeply embedded in Filipino folklore, particularly among the Visayan, Tagalog, and other indigenous groups. Similar to little people in other cultures, the Duende is considered a supernatural being that resides in various natural or man-made locations, such as forests, caves, old houses, or even specific stones and trees. These beings play a significant role in maintaining harmony between the human and spiritual worlds, blending both benevolent and malevolent traits depending on how they are treated. In Filipino folklore, duendes are described as small humanoid beings, often seen as being no taller than a child. They are known to possess sharp features, including large, piercing eyes and mischievous grins. Depending on the region, duendes may wear traditional clothing or appear almost skeletal, with earthly, primitive features. Their behavior can be unpredictable, ranging from playful and helpful to vengeful and malevolent. Some are known to protect certain places, while others are seen as tricksters who play pranks on humans, leading to fear and respect among those who believe in their existence. The Duende serves a dual role in Filipino culture. On one hand, they are guardians of sacred spaces, ensuring that natural environments such as forests or streams remain protected and undisturbed. For farmers in rural communities, Duendes are believed to watch over crops, guiding those who show proper respect to nature. On the other hand, their mischievous side can lead to minor disruptions if disrespected. It is said that they are particularly offended by those who disturb their homes, whether through destruction or natural spaces or inappropriate behavior towards sacred sites. Filipino communities hold deep respect for the Duende, often engaging in rituals to avoid offending them. These rituals might include offerings of food, tobacco, or other goods placed at specific locations believed to be inhabited by Duendes. These offerings are intended to appease and gain favor, ensuring protection and prosperity. There are countless stories of encounters with Duendes in Filipino folklore, many of which have been passed down through generations. These stories often involve strange occurrences such as objects moving on their own, sudden ailments, or inexplicable disappearances, attributed to the influence of duendes. Many locals claim to have had personal experiences, whether through sightings or interactions that leave them feeling uneasy or blessed, depending on how they approach the beings. In some cases, duendes are said to possess the ability to grant wishes or show hidden treasures, though such gifts come with warnings of consequences if not handled carefully. These tales emphasize the importance of respect for nature and the supernatural, as humans are seen as mere guests in the shared spaces of the living and spiritual realms. The Duende is more than just a creature of myth. It represents a deep-rooted cultural philosophy in Filipino society. They symbolize the balance between the material and spiritual worlds, highlighting the interconnectedness of all life. By acknowledging and respecting duendes, Filipinos cultivate a greater awareness of the environment and the importance of harmony within it. Furthermore, duendes serve as cautionary figures, teaching lessons about the consequences of disrespect toward nature and the spiritual domain. This mirrors other global folklore traditions, where similar supernatural beings reflect the need for reverence toward the unseen forces that govern the world. The Duende is a vital component of Filipino folklore, intertwining the natural world with the spiritual and mythical. Whether seen as protectors or tricksters, Duendes emphasize the importance of respect for nature, the mystical, and the delicate balance between human and spiritual realms. Their enduring presence in stories and traditions highlight the rich history of Filipino culture and the deep connection between people and their environment. And I probably should have prefaced this episode by saying, this is all information that I could gather on the beautiful World Wide Web. You know, I am not particularly connected to any of these cultures. I'm a honky. If anything, probably closest to Celtic. But if for whatever reason the information that we've shared, it doesn't really line up completely, and if you're a part of these cultures and you want to share more information with us or share your thoughts on specific things to kind of help expand this out a little bit, feel free to comment wherever you're listening or send us an email to the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. And we particularly really enjoy getting information from people that live within these cultures, you know, because I feel like that's the safest way to go. And there's actually, I want to say in part 2 or something, we touch on the Menehune of Hawaiian culture, and that is a tricky one because there is a lot of lore between whether they're actual people that came to Hawaii and are like treated disrespectfully, or they're spiritual entities or something like that. And so like for me, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go into what I can find. And if it's incorrect, I'm sure the Hawaiians will let me know. just a kind of precursor to all of this is that all I can really share is what I can find online. I haven't, spent years within these cultures or anything like that, but I was fascinated by the cultures around the world and how they kind of approach these entities. And we'll find a lot of similarities between all of them, which is, if anything, very curious within itself. So what do you think of Duendes?
Is it curious, though?
It is. You're not like the least bit curious about this stuff?
I mean,
the fact that it's all over the world, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at, there is some kind of lore about this.
That just means it's been around since humans
the dawn
started.
of time.
Yeah. And it's just spread as humans have changed cultures and moved around. They've taken this with them.
I'll give you that for some of it, but some of it is, especially back in the day before, easy transportation, you had cultures sharing these similar stories without ever knowing each other from like thousands and thousands of miles away. And so it's almost like they were experiencing the same entities, except in a different location, and they just came up with different names for it.
That could be.
It could be. You never know, but I'm just saying, like back in the day, it wasn't as easy to get information shared across.
Or they experienced little people a long time ago, and they just told the stories about it as they moved on and traveled to other parts of the world. And then they would have other experiences that maybe reminded them of the stories that their grandparents used to say about these little people.
Personally, I think they could be all seeing the exact same thing. I just have different names for it. Which would make this probably one of the most boring series of all time if they're all the exact same thing. Like I said, you'll find similarities and stuff in the descriptions, but if they were all the same and we just have 10 episodes based on the exact same thing, that would be a little mind-numbing. But nonetheless, maybe a fun little cultural take to dive into.
I would think it would be more mythical if we hadn't found the remains of a species of little people.
It would be more mythical, but since we found little people, then maybe it's factual.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the Hawaiian thing comes in, is that, there's a lot of, because I went on the actual like Hawaii subreddit and was looking at stuff on this, and that's all in part 2. I'm sure we'll get to it, but it was pretty intense back and forth between people being like, no, these were actual like Polynesian people that came over and, pushed these people into the mountains and then turned them into a folktale. I don't know.
That sounds like a human thing to do.
It could happen. I'm not saying it's not. That's why we need people that are actually a part of these cultures to reach out and share their stories with us, or their takes. If they share their takes with us, then it just helps open our eyes a little. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get into a couple of Duende stories. And the first one features a Lechuza and a Duende. That's even better. It's better for us if you didn't hear the La Lechuza episode way back and whenever the hell it was. Who knows, really?
That sounds like a strange mashup.
It does. It's a really weird story, man. I'll tell you that.
I feel like La Lechuza was first season.
Was first what?
First season.
No, that was like season 3, I think.
Was it?
Yeah. It was early in season 3, but it's been a couple years, sure. Definitely.
For some reason, I felt like Heather was here when we did that one.
No, what was she here for? She was here for something similar. I can't remember what it was, though. She was, honestly, let's be honest, she was here for 10 episodes or something, right?
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Maybe like the whole first season. So it's not like she was here for a long time. She started at episode 10 of season 1 and went to like the end of season 1, which was maybe 15, 20 episodes. I can't remember. It's been 4 years now. But the memory remains.
Years.
The funny thing is when people email us and they talk about and they must be starting the show from the beginning instead of the end and working their way back, because they'll be like, I love all 3 of you guys. I'm like, all 3 of us? What are you talking about? I'm like, oh yeah, Heather was here for a stint. And they may be disappointed when they find out the only female presence of the show abandoned us. It's fine. We got other females. Actually, I'd say that the majority of our audience is female. So,
well, hello there.
Hello. Yeah, Christian is single and he needs a good marketer. He needs a girlfriend that's a good marketer that can push the show to new heights. And she's got to be 85.
No.
Okay. Well, I tried. I tried for the majority of our audience. I tried to get you there, but
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
He's not there yet. Anyway, this first story is called Lechuza and the Duende. They say, I live in a border town which consists predominantly of Hispanic people. We also have a reservation here where there are a lot of Lechuza sightings.
A reservation?
Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of weird? Location-wise?
Yes.
For those who don't know, Lechuzas are supposedly witches who take the form of owls. I am Mexican, so I grew up hearing about these stories. Duendes are little people. They go by many different names depending on which region you're from. Anyway, back to my experience. This all happened 1 year ago on the same night. While I had never seen a Lechuza, I had heard them plenty of times. This night was different. I was with 2 friends drinking in the reservation. We had a few beers, but weren't even buzzed. No drugs either. We went outside for a cigarette, and it didn't take long for us to spot something in a tree right in front of us. It was clearly an owl, but with the face of a human. There was no mistaking it. Supposedly, if you come across one, you're supposed to tell them firmly to leave. Well, the guys I was with made the mistake of taunting it, calling it names, and just being stupid kids. I was scared at this point and suggested we go inside. Why would you... Look, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? And you're smoking a cigarette and you see an owl with a human's face in a tree, why is your first instinct to taunt it? My first instinct would be to scream and run back inside, because that's not natural, you know?
Also, this calls into question the having the beers when we weren't even buzzed.
A few beers, I mean, depending on how much of an alcoholic you are, a few beers is probably going to buzz you a bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm someone that drinks like 1 or 2 beers a year, so I'm like, it doesn't take much for me to get a nice little buzz going. But then again, I've been called a pansy ass before, so there's that.
Yeah, but they saw a human face on an owl. They were a little buzzed.
But all 3 of them, you'd think if one person was like, does that owl have a human face? Then the other 2 would be like, are you stupid? You know, and like tease that guy for clearly being too drunk. But the fact all 3 of them, I don't know.
I feel like if somebody saw an owl with a human face around me, they wouldn't tell me because I would ridicule them.
If you were there, they'd probably be like, hey, Christian, look at that owl. Does it have a human face? Just to verify.
Yeah, and I'd be like, nope, looks like
or
an
they
owl.
probably wouldn't even say human face. They'd be like, is there anything strange looking about that owl?
Yeah.
To which, yeah, you would have to be like, it has a human face.
Yeah, that's one of those soul hunter owls. You should probably run.
Run. Yeah, anyway. As soon as I opened the door, something flew inside. Went to the room furthest from the door, and all you could hear were noises coming from that room. The light turned on by itself, and the back door slammed open. At this point, we were freaked out because we knew we had just let her into their home. Out of nowhere, spiders started appearing everywhere, and a rat as well. We were in the kitchen talking about what we should do when one of my friends said, "Do you guys see that behind the couch? Is that a duende?" I thought he was messing with me because I was extremely freaked out, and I told him to quit fucking with me. Sure enough, I looked where he told me, and sure enough, peeking from behind the couch was a small man with a little hat and dressed in white. I, of course, freaked out and ran out of that place. That's the smartest move. A lot of other weird things happened to all of us after that, but that's a story for another time. So yeah, that's my story. My apologies, by the way. I'm not very good at telling stories. Yeah, you did all right. That's kind of... It's weird the fact that you see a Lechuza flies into the house, starts doing all this weird shit in a room. You see a bunch of spiders and a rat, and then there's a duende just randomly behind the couch. I know what you're thinking. Hallucinogenics were in play, regardless of what they said. But
I did think that. But also, what is this world coming to if these different mythical creatures are combining their strength to overtake us?
it is kind of... It's almost like... I don't know. I've never heard... seeing the same or those 2 things at the same time. I don't think there's a correlation, but if there's someone out there that knows more about this, I'm sure they'll reach out and be like, actually, you'd be surprised how many duendes are spotted when a Lechuza's around. Or they might just be like, this is all horse shit, whatever. And you can do whatever.
I mean, if you're looking into another dimension or a different universe, you see one cross over, maybe they cross over at the same time because they operate on the same plane of existence. We just don't always see them because we're a different plane of existence.
Who's to say, really? You know, it's fine.
Until we get a duende in studio, looked really cute in that chair over there.
Yeah, it'd be
We'd
very
have to
tiny.
lower the microphone.
It'd be fine. They can figure it out. It's adjustable. Anyway.
Do they speak English?
There's no saying until we actually talk to one.
Fair point.
I don't know if I've ever heard stories of them talking or people interacting with them.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I might have.
I don't recall anything where someone's talking to it.
Yeah, what's up, Duende? Yeah, that would be a story I'd like to hear.
And is their name Rumpelstiltskin?
That is also a story I'd like to
Because that
hear.
was a terrifying story when I was a child.
It's a terrifying story now. This next story is called My Aunt's House. It's an ant farm. Just kidding. For those who don't know what duendes are, okay, they're essentially... This person says they're essentially elves or leprechauns. These creatures are either good or bad, but either way, mischievous. The bad ones are said to lure kids away, while the, quote, good ones will play pranks on you. Anyway, this happened when I was 13 or 14. This was probably one of the last times I went consistently. My aunt lived very close to a mountain near Oaxaca. 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 Does that sound right?
Oaxaca.
Oaxaca?
No, it's something like that.
Oaxaca. Oaxaca.
I've heard it in a song.
Oh, well, that makes sense then. Her husband, my uncle, was a pretty wealthy guy. He sold and bred livestock. He had a lot of horses, cattle, goats, and dogs. Their house was a pretty big place with lots of land for the animals. Of course, their house was very isolated. The closest town was a ways away. We went there one year to stay with her, and everything was normal for the first few days. When the weird stuff started happening was once early in the morning. I wear wristwatches and I take it off to go to bed and put it back on after I brush my teeth and whatnot. I remember waking up, grabbing my watch and putting it on top of the shelf outside the bathroom, brushing my teeth and coming back to find it gone. I thought for a second and looked around the shelf and under it but didn't find it. I went back to the room I was staying in and looked around but couldn't find it. I thought maybe one of my siblings was playing with me, so I looked around and all three of my siblings were sleeping on the floor. That's when I started getting not scared, but worried. I went to look around the shelf more and still couldn't find it. I remember saying out loud, "Whoever took my watch, give it back because I'm getting mad." I walked away to put my shoes on, and from the living room I could hear a slight noise. It was my alarm on my watch going off. I peeked my head into the hallway and could see the blue light from my watch. That's when I got scared. I walked up to it, put it on, and got an uneasy feeling. I went to watch TV and saw my aunt walking into the kitchen. I said good morning and asked her if she grabbed my watch. She said no, but warned me not to leave valuables in the open. I asked why, and she said the Duendes will take them and hide them. I gave an uncomfortable laugh and said, "Right." She obviously saw that I thought she was crazy. She told me she was serious and that the Duende probably grabbed my watch. In my mind, I was saying, this lady is nuts. Later that day, I asked my mom if Duendes were real. She gave me a concerned look and asked why. I told her my aunt said there were Duendes in her house. She steered away from the question and just said, "If you feel scared, just pray." I didn't think about it much after that. I remember we watched a movie in the living room and I fell asleep on the couch. I remember waking up to a thud coming from the kitchen and footsteps running from the kitchen. The footsteps were light but still audible. It sounded like when a cat runs. I saw the lights turn on from the hallway and saw my aunt running towards the kitchen. I heard her say, "Mendijos duendes," which means damn elves. I slowly got up and peeked into the kitchen, and it was a huge mess. A lot of stuff was knocked over, mostly food. I asked if an animal got in, maybe a raccoon. She was aggravated by the mess and just said, "Duendes." I rolled my eyes and looked at my watch. It was almost 4 a.m. I decided to help her clean up. We finished cleaning up in about 20 minutes, and when I helped her with the dustpan, it was one of the sucky ones where you have to crouch over to hold it. When I crouched over, I looked at the huge pile of food and could see either sugar or flour and made out little tiny footprints.
Of course.
Of course. Not little baby footprints, but smaller, like if a lizard had human feet. I mean, we're talking this big at that point if it's a lizard, unless it's a big like iguana or something.
Yeah, maybe he's talking big lizard.
Maybe. I'm picturing like desert lizards. I'm like, that is a really tiny footprint.
Duendes are Komodo dragons.
Well, there you have it.
They'll eat your toes.
Okay. I looked at my aunt, and she knew I saw them. She said, "I told you." I was still not completely convinced, so I went to bed and woke up. Nothing happened for a few days. The last experience I had with these things was when I was sleeping and for some reason woke up. It's usually what happens when you're sleeping. No reason at all. I remember feeling uneasy and hearing those footsteps again as something small was running in front of the bed. I sat up fast and saw a small shadow running oddly, like it was waddling but still moving kind of fast. All this happened in a matter of seconds, and I turned on the lights and nothing was there. I couldn't make the shadow out, but it was small, maybe a foot tall. That's when I started believing in that shit. I was so uneasy after that and was glad I was out of there. Weird. Little baby tiny person footprints and some flour. It's classic stuff, really.
I mean, it sounds kind of cinematic that they would find flour.
Well, if they made a mess, like the dude heard a bunch of shit being thrown around and then her running out of the kitchen, and then the aunt comes in and is talking about damn elves. These damn elves? Man, that's a world I want to live in where that's just like a random, like matter of fact problem that you have inside a house, right? It's
I
these
know
fucking
you.
elves, man. They're all over the place.
I know you would not like that.
I would like to Airbnb there for a few days.
Okay.
I wouldn't like to live there forever, but I would like to experience it where I'm like, oh my goodness, look at those tiny baby footprints. And I'd be like, all right, well, I've seen what all I need to see. I'm on my way out.
Do you
Peace
ever
and love.
wonder why American culture doesn't have more of these things? Basically, these type of creatures are imported from other cultures a lot of times.
I think we have them. I don't think there's a belief in them. And that's because, we're traditional Western culture where everything is matter of fact and whatever science says and the mind and all this shit exists. So, no, I mean, it's just not, we don't really dive into, there's certain parts of the country that have, pretty, I guess, a high number of people who believe in these things. But I would assume the Midwest, definitely not like LA or New York or anything. You're not going to find, unless it's the lizard people in the sewerways, or whatever it is, alligators, whatever it was. But yeah, it just doesn't get talked about because the second you see anything outside the norm, you're labeled as crazy, which is why a lot of people don't talk about it when they do see it. They're like, well, I guess people are going to think I'm crazy or I'm just going to live with this for the rest of my life.
I don't know, man. I find it fascinating that there's so many stories of little people, but not many pictures.
Yeah, but the same can be said about a lot of things. There's not many pictures. A lot of these sightings are like fast. It's like it happened within a minute. Everything was done. So, and even that, most of the, like this person was like, I woke up, I saw a shadow waddling kind of fast out of the room, heard the same sound I heard in the kitchen, and I kind of couldn't really make it out, but it looked like someone about a foot tall.
At least he wasn't wearing a hat.
Like the Duende in the first story. Yeah.
Be a little person hat man.
A little person hat man. That would be terrifying. Do you think the Duendes have their own hat man? Like sometimes they're sleeping and they wake up and there's a silhouette of a Duende wearing a hat.
A tall Duende wearing a hat.
They'd be like, is that a person now? Hey, it's irrelevant. Do Duendes see ghosts?
They probably see humans when they wake up. We're their shadow people.
Kind of creepy. Anyway, we're going to get into the Aluxes of Mayan culture now. The Aluxes are small mythical beings that hold a prominent place in the folklore of the Mayan people of Mesoamerica. Often described as tricksters and protectors of nature, Aluxes are deeply rooted in the spiritual traditions of the Maya and reflect their reverence for the natural world. These creatures serve as a testament to the rich interplay between mythology, ecology, and the spiritual beliefs of ancient and modern Maya. Aluxes are typically depicted as diminutive, childlike figures, resembling miniature humans, often standing only a few feet tall. Despite their small size, they are considered powerful entities wielding influence over their surroundings. Their appearance can vary, but they are often associated with the earthly elements of the jungle and caves. Some traditions describe them as wearing simple rustic clothing and having the ability to become invisible, appearing only to those they choose to reveal themselves to. These beings are believed to inhabit the wild, particularly areas considered sacred by the Maya, such as caves, forests, cenotes, natural sinkholes.
Yeah, they're like the things like
our front yard.
No, it's you can swim in cenotes.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't swim when I was in Mexico, but I could have.
And fall into the cavern that is the abyss of the earth.
It's just like a little sinkhole lake in a way.
Oh, interesting. And ancient ruins
or pond, more or less.
There you go. Their close association with these natural features underscores their role as guardians of the land. In this capacity, Aluxes are said to protect crops, animals, and water sources, ensuring that the delicate balance of the environment is maintained. In Mayan belief, Aluxes are both benevolent and mischievous. Sound familiar? Farmers often sought their protection, creating small offerings or even constructing miniature houses and fields for the Aluxes to inhabit. These houses, known as Katal Aluxe, were believed to provide the beings with a home, ensuring their loyalty. When properly respected, Aluxes grant bountiful harvests, guard crops from thieves or pests, and even warn of impending danger. However, if neglected or offended, Aluxes could become spiteful. Their mischievous side might manifest in pranks such as hiding tools, leading travelers astray, or causing minor accidents. Some even believed Aluxes had the power to bring illness or misfortune if their domain was disrespected. As such, maintaining a respectful relationship with these beings was seen as crucial. The relationship between the Maya and the Aluxes is maintained through rituals, offerings, and storytelling. Farmers might perform ceremonies at the start of a planting season, leaving food, drink, or small trinkets to appease the Aluxes. I also get appeased by small trinkets. You can find your boy at a gift shop 99% of the time. These rituals are carried out with the guidance of a shaman who acts as a mediator between the physical and spiritual worlds. Even today, some modern Maya communities continue to honor Aluxes, blending ancient traditions with contemporary beliefs. Tour guides and locals in regions such as the Yucatan Peninsula often share stories of Aluxe encounters, perpetuating their place in cultural memory. Aluxes symbolize the interconnectedness of the Maya with their environment. Very similar. I feel like a lot of these, it almost feels like an earth spirit, like we protect nature. You know, that's at least the vibe I get from a lot of these different lore, I guess you could say.
That makes sense.
They remind us of the importance of respecting nature and acknowledging the unseen forces that sustain life. Their dual nature, helpful yet potentially vengeful, reflects the need for balance in all relationships, whether with other people or the natural world. Moreover, Aluxes embody the mystical worldview of the Maya, where the physical and spiritual realms overlap. Their stories serve as a reminder of the rich cultural heritage of Mesoamerica and the enduring power of mythology in shaping how people perceive and interact with their surroundings. So again, like I said, I couldn't really find any first-hand stories, but I did find Royal Resorts surprisingly posted about these, probably for tourists and whatnot. And then there was a small story about a bridge or the Cancun Nizuk Bridge, Nizuk, who cares? So the Royal Resorts folktale kind of from the area is, in Mayan folklore, Aluxes are variously described as childlike figures dressed in white or little men with cigars, guns, and a dog at their heel. They look after a farmer's land and play pranks on those who try and steal the harvest. They reputedly tip sleeping thieves out of their hammocks to wake them up, throw stones at them, make them lose their way, and sometimes even catch a fever. Uh-oh. That'd be bad. In return for their protection, the farmer must make offerings to appease them. And when land changes hands, the new owner must organize a ceremony conducted by a Mayan H-men, or priest. I don't know if that's just pronounced men at that point.
Is it supposed to be
like
shaman?
Well, it is their version of a shaman, but it's literally spelled H-M-E-N, during which he introduces himself to the spirits and asks for them to watch over his crops. The Mayan believe that if you hear rustling in the bushes at night, suddenly trip up or realize that you have lost something, cigarettes often go missing, you may have had a close encounter with an Aluxe. They say that the sounds of shots and dogs barking in the distance, as faint as if they were coming from underground, is also a sign that the Aluxes are out hunting. Archaeologists have unearthed clay figurines at area archaeological sites that they believe may be linked to the mythology of the Aluxe. Mayan folktales also tell of priests who could bring the clay Aluxes to life by burning copal incense in one of the figurines for 9 days and 9 nights without rest. As you take the road from Cancun Airport towards town, you may have noticed a tiny stone temple under the bridge to your right. The story goes that in the early days of Cancun, engineers had to build the bridge several times because it kept mysteriously collapsing. One day, a construction worker remarked that the Aluxe watching over the plot of land was angry, and that the engineers should consult a Mayan priest, orHmen. That sounds a little more Jewish when I do it like that, but that's fine. One funny thing was that I saw somewhere they were called X-Men, and I was like, there's no way that's got to be a typo.
It's got to be.
Or it'd be super intriguing if it was X-Men. We call the X-Men over to take care of this. The Men, he's not Middle Eastern, sorry, agreed to perform a ceremony to appease the capricious spirit and said that if the engineers really wanted to get on the right side of the Aluxe, they should build him a house. The house was duly built, and presumably the Aluxe was happy because the bridge building went smoothly after that. A true Cancun pioneer story or urban legend. It shows that ancient beliefs endure in the Yucatan Peninsula. That is, yeah, so, and the other story I'm not going to read it because it's repeating twice, but the other story pretty much says that they tried building it 3 times, and every time there was some kind of issue, had to start over. And it wasn't until they called this shaman out to appease this Aluxe that was apparently the troll of that bridge or whatever, that it actually was successful.
Maybe the secret to life is leaving offerings for these unseen things that exist around us.
Perhaps. Who's to say? So again, there's not too much information about the Aluxes. There's information about, folklore and stuff like that, but there's no, that I could find really convincing personal firsthand accounts of seeing these things, or the thing that like a shaman would burn that incense or whatever for 9 days and nights straight. to bring this statue to life is kind of interesting because it reminds me of I can't remember what the name of it was.
Golem?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Is that Jewish?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's kind of like an interesting correlation there. I was like, huh, fascinating. So that's pretty much all I got on the Aluxes. We're going to go ahead and do you have any thoughts on the Aluxes outside of them being absolutely real and you're terrified?
Why would I be terrified? They're just mischievous little things. And I would be nice to mischievous little things because I'm a nice person and they would leave me alone.
They'd be like, oh, there's a nice person. I bet he's nice to mischievous little things. Then you'd say, yes, that is me.
Yep. As I leave a little thing of Pringles out on the porch for him. I do say a lot of weird shit, though.
Yeah, that checks out.
You ever met a little person that likes Pringles?
My son.
Yeah.
He very much
Universal.
likes Pringles. Yeah, that's true. And he's got the small hands to get inside that can. It's a blessing that many of us do not have anymore.
It was funny when I came over with a small thing of Pringles, how shocked he was by the little Pringles.
It's a Bubba can.
Yeah,
It's a Bubba
that's
can.
exactly what he thought.
Yeah. Classic Bubba. Even though I didn't go to sleep till 10:30 last night.
Wow.
Yeah, I tried putting him down for about an hour and a half at 7, and I was getting pissed. And then China came in, and she tried putting him down for an hour, and she texted me. She's like, I'm about to just let him come downstairs until we go to sleep. I'm like, well, it's 9:30, so I'm about to go to sleep right now. And then I was like, hey, buddy, you just want to sleep in our bed tonight? He's like, okay. And brought him in there. He didn't fall asleep. And after an hour, it was China's night with him, but I was like, do you want to just go in your room? I'll just go in your room. I can't, this is a queen size bed and there's 2 people that take up 90% of it. And then there's my big ass that is like, okay, well, I can't sleep on 10%, you know? So I just took him in the other room, ended up falling asleep at like 10:30. I'm like, wow, never again. Whatever happened last night feeding wise, and I feel like he ate a lot of fruit. And so there's probably a lot of sugar. And then China gave him a Hershey kiss after dinner. So I'm like,
There's a little bit of caffeine in that kiss.
a little bit of caffeine, yes. I tried telling her that. She's like, no, it's not that. We give him kisses all the time. Okay. Well, I'm just a dumb old dad, so what do I know?
China is a little people.
She is a little people.
I didn't say that. Scott did.
Well, actually, we've both said it at various times over the course of this show, and that's fine. Anyway, we're going to close things out today with our third culture is Celtic fairies and leprechauns. And these are fun. You know these are fun. Search your heart. You know this to be true. Let's see. The folklore of Celtic culture is rich with tales of fairies and leprechauns, 2 types of supernatural beings that have captured the imagination of storytellers for centuries. I just remember there's going to be a story in here that I had to put in there because it's me, and you're going to get a kick out of it. And it's nothing about Lucky Charms or rainbows, so you're not going to worry about that. Though when I was looking for stories, there was many people commenting, oh, yes, I saw one. He was sitting at the end of a rainbow eating cereal. I'm like, ha. Original, sir. Very original.
I wholeheartedly believed in the leprechaun at the end of the rainbow when I was a child.
So did I.
I was in California. I don't think that's a thing in California, but
It is because I also believed that and I was in California. But for me, it was more wishful thinking like, damn,
Me
if I could
too.
just get that pot of gold, I could buy all the Beanie Babies in the world or whatever I was into at that time. Probably something stupid that would hold 0 value, as is tradition. But that's neither here nor there. So leprechauns, fairies, 2 types of supernatural beings that have captured the imagination of storytellers for centuries. These mythical creatures are deeply tied to the natural world, reflecting the Celts' reverence for the land and their belief in an enchanted realm existing alongside the mortal one. While fairies are often associated with beauty, mystery, and otherworldly power, leprechauns embody mischief, resourcefulness, and a touch of greed. Together, they form an integral part of Celtic mythology and folklore, illustrating humanity's enduring fascination with the unseen. Wonder Twin powers activate. With my powers of resourcefulness and greed, combined with beauty and otherworldly power, we are unstoppable.
what the hell are you talking about over there? Or did you just go on
I just went in. I'm not reading from the script. I literally, it's fine. You know, sometimes things trigger weird memories for you. That triggered Wonder Twins. And I've never even watched Wonder Twins. So if that's even, I don't even know if that's a show. I just know like a small clip that I've heard and it brought me into this
I
weird
think they're
thing.
from the Justice League.
Possibly.
They had like a little monkey running around with them.
Wow. Racist. Very racist.
Do you know that Superdog is about to make appearance in the movies?
Did you know that I actually don't give a shit about anything Superman related anymore?
I usually don't either, but it looks like a good movie.
No, because there's been 15 Superman movies in the last 2 years. Okay, I'm tired. I'm tired.
I always thought Superman was boring and too powerful, but
He's dumb as fuck. Okay, a crystal is what brings him down. Hey, look at this shiny green crystal. Oh God, no.
It's a special crystal.
Sure. Yeah, of course it is. Anyway,
It's just
now that we're done talking about stupid shit, let me talk about fairies again.
Oh,
all
yeah.
right?
Get
Let me
back
get
to
back into let me get back into the good stuff.
get back to the real thing.
All right. In Celtic tradition, fairies are ethereal beings believed to inhabit the natural world, particularly in places like wooded glades. Oh yeah, I love a good wooded glade. Hills or ancient stone circles. They are often described as otherworldly with an enchanting beauty and magical abilities. The fairies were thought to dwell in the otherworld, a parallel realm hidden from human eyes, accessible only through sacred or liminal spaces. This connection to the other world made fairies both revered and feared. While they could bless humans with gifts of prosperity or artistic inspiration, they could also curse those who disrespected their domain. Fairies were believed to embody the forces of nature, acting as protectors of the environment. Legends often caution against damaging fairy-related sites such as hawthorn trees or fairy forts, as such actions could incur their wrath. The dual nature of fairies, as both benevolent and vengeful, underscored the importance of maintaining respect for the natural world. Offerings of milk, bread, or honey were often left out to appease these beings, ensuring harmony between humans and the and the frog in my throat. Ensuring harmony between humans and the other world. While leprechauns are a type of fairy, their depiction in Celtic lore is more grounded and mischievous. Leprechauns are typically portrayed as small, elderly men clad in green or red with a penchant for cobbling shoes and hoarding gold. Unlike the broader category of fairies, leprechauns are solitary creatures, avoiding interactions with other magical beings and humans whenever possible. However, when encountered, they are often clever tricksters, using their wit to outsmart anyone attempting to capture them. The leprechaun's most famous attribute is
His love for cereal with marshmallows in it.
Well, that is something to hold on to, honestly. The most famous attribute of leprechauns is his hidden pot of gold, which he is bound to reveal if caught. However, capturing a leprechaun is no small feat. Their cunning nature ensures that most humans end up tricked, losing both the gold and the leprechaun's favor. This legend likely evolved as a metaphor for the fleeting nature of wealth and the futility of greed.
That's funny, because I was just, as you were reading that, I was like, I wonder if there's like a metaphor in there for this. And then you said that. I'm like,
You're like, this feels like a metaphor for fleeting nature of wealth and the futility of greed.
I'm fucking brilliant.
Sure. It's easy to say those things after they're read aloud. Like fairies, leprechauns demand respect, and those who approach them with kindness and cleverness are more likely to gain their cooperation. Both fairies and leprechauns are deeply symbolic in Celtic culture. Fairies represent the mystical forces of nature and the need for balance between humanity and the environment. Their stories remind us of the consequences of greed, disrespect, or hubris, often cautioning against taking the natural world for granted. Leprechauns, on the other hand, reflect the resourcefulness and resilience of the human spirit. Their association with gold and trickery can be seen as a commentary on the value of cleverness over material wealth. These beings also reflect the Celts' spiritual worldview, which saw the mortal and supernatural realms as closely intertwined. The reverence for fairies and the fascination with leprechauns reveal a culture that embraced the magical and the mysterious, finding meaning in stories that bridge the known and unknown. So I got a couple of very interesting stories for leprechauns. This first one's a little creepy. The first one's called The Dancing Leprechaun. It's by Blue Silk Tree. I haven't shared this story with many people, as skeptics are quick to write off experiences like mine. You don't say. Around 7 years ago, when I was staying at my dad's house, I woke up in the middle of the night to see what I now believe was a leprechaun. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this experience was so creepy it still gives me chills to this day. I grew up in my dad's house, and it's always felt like home. It doesn't have any creepy vibes or a history of paranormal activity. It's just a normal house. I was sleeping in my bedroom, and I woke up facing the left side of the room. In the space about 1.5 meters in front of me, I saw this small man, maybe 3 feet tall, dancing in a circle. Since I'd just woken up, my eyes weren't fully adjusted, so I could only make out the outline of this thing and couldn't see any facial features. I hope this makes sense, but it wasn't a shadowy being, it was a solid mass, as real as a person standing in the room. He was wearing a top hat, and the dancing was really strange. The dancing is hard to describe. The only way I can think of explaining it is that he was hunched over doing an exaggerated tiptoeing motion. Anyway, I'm watching it dance for around 10 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time, but it was enough for me to properly wake up and wonder what on earth I was looking at. I was shocked and frozen, thinking, this can't be real. After watching it dance in the short space of time, it suddenly stops dead in its tracks, seems to turn around towards me, and begins coming at me with speed. I screamed and flipped over to the other side of the bed to turn on the light. When I looked back to the side of the room where it had been, it was gone. Needless to say, I kept the light on and didn't go to sleep until it was light outside and my dad was awake. For a long time, I explained this apparition as a creepy small man dancing around my room in a top hat. It wasn't until I told my boyfriend about it years later and he said it sounded like a leprechaun that it clicked. What do you think it might have been? In terms of a rational explanation, I guess it could have been just a waking hallucination or overspill from a dream. However, I've had several instances throughout my life of waking up in the night and seeing apparitions. This experience, along with one other, have been the only ones that have felt different to those other times. It's not like I saw it briefly or as a quick flash. I had time to watch it and take it in. I was fully awake by the time it started to rush toward me. I struggle to explain it away, and it still freaks me out whenever I think about it. Now, before we go into your thoughts, I want to actually get your opinion on the dancing. Because can you picture that, like the crowd kind of hunched over and like dancing on his tiptoes in a circle? I'm picturing, you know, the cave art, like the old hieroglyphics and stuff. I think Native American probably. That's almost what it looks like, because I remember seeing these depictions of people that were like hunched over and dancing. And maybe I'm thinking of like when they were wearing the pelts or whatever, but it had that
like
same visual.
You just like brought in like 5 or 6 different cultures.
I did, but that's the thing, is like the visual is so, I guess, clear as day for me. I mean, maybe I'm picturing it wrong, but I'm immediately going to those like hieroglyphic looking things. And maybe hieroglyphics is the wrong word. I'm not talking like ancient Egyptian or anything like that. I'm talking like more Native American. I don't know. That's just the visual I get, is I see that dancing like Rain Man or whatever. Rain Man is not. It's not a dancing rain man. It's what are they called? Maybe shaman. Rain dance. I'm picturing a rain dance. That's what it is. Well, it took me a while to get there, but creepy.
I don't know, man. I'm not picturing a rain dance. I'm just picturing.
It's creepy. No,
like a weird dream with dancing in it. I
Well-
always find it fascinating that people wake up and they see things
mm-hmm.
and it's real to them.
Yeah.
When I think at that, like when you're just waking up, it's hard to trust what's real and what's not, because you're coming out of a dream state.
Have you ever had like what is it, hypnopompic or hypnagogic? I can't remember which, but like where you pull something out as you're waking up, you see it?
When I was little, yeah.
Yeah. Because I can say, from someone that experienced that a lot, it does wake you up very quickly. So like you could, right now, if I were to wake up, I'm groggy for an hour, right? But back then, when you wake up and you see something crazy, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck? And like you snap out of it real quick and you're staring at this thing. There is no more sleep inside of you.
Right.
You're like wide awake, you know? And so I can understand that. And this person mentioned that they had those experiences where they've seen something upon waking where it just felt different. And this and another one was too different to where, and I guess if something is charging at you, that's a little freakier. You just see it dancing in a circle, 3 feet away from you. 6 feet away from you, whatever, 1.5 meters, 5 feet away, 4.5 feet away. We'll call it that. And then, it stops, looks at you, and just charges you. No, that would stay with you for sure.
You shouldn't interrupt
A rain dance.
a little person's dance of protection,
That's one way to say it, sure.
or a dance of soul stealing. I don't know what it is, man. I've never talked to a leprechaun.
Nobody has. Well, if they have, maybe they're wildly wealthy right now. You think Elon Musk captured a leprechaun? Jeff Bezos? Is that what their deal was?
No.
They weren't, just gifted. Nah, this was given to them. All the money in the world.
I mean, one inherited a lot of money and one started a big company.
That's what they tell you, Christian. We know the truth around here. It's fine. Anyway, give us your thoughts on that weird dance thing, Leprechaun Man. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get into this final story for the episode, and it's called, oh God, I can already hear your reaction to this, but we got to do it. I saw this and I was like, there's no way I'm not putting that story in, whether I believe it or not. I have to share it. It's called Leprechauns Are Tiny Nephilim.
Wow.
and it's by Renee Donaldson.
We laugh, but
This was, I honestly, I've never heard this. And I was like, well, that's an interesting take. I don't know if there's any credibility whatsoever, but sure.
we laugh, but there's a decent amount of people in this world that believes if it ain't Jesus, it's satanic.
Well, I don't know if Nephilim are technically considered satanic. It's more like a race. It's fine. It's whatever. We're going to get into this. Renee writes.
And are the Nephilim a little disappointed that some of their people are so little?
Probably. If you think about the grand scheme of things, like, of course there's going to be giants, and of course there's going to be the alternate of that, which is tiny people, you know?
There might be giants.
Wow, classic ref. Anyway, they're part of the Eliud race of Nephilim, apparently. Eliud. Eliud. They're the smallest of the humanoid Nephilim. There was a professor in the mountains of North Carolina who researched the stories of Native Americans living in the area. There were many stories regarding dwarvish underground tunnels that the Native Americans didn't speak about because they weren't believed. When she broke through the silence barrier, she found out that there were two races of literal dwarfish underground tunnel dwellers. One group was racially the same as the Native Americans and were human. The other was a race of white-skinned, red-headed, pointed-eared Nephilim. These two species of dwarves knew of each other, but they hated each other. They were not friends. This professor has a book on Amazon about her research, as does everyone. Leprechauns have always existed, but they're actually elves. Those red-headed dwarves living literally underground with pointed ears are elves. Their species are what the leprechaun on Lucky Charms, the elf on the horror movie Leprechaun, and the famous elves from The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings are based upon. The reason you only see them in fiction is because they originate from giants procreating with human women. But how many 9 to 19 footers do you see walking around? You don't. No one does. The only one I heard about it was as a 12-foot cannibal who was eating American military men.
This person's all over the place.
Are they talking about the Kandahar?
Yes.
Afghanistan, probably? Was that 12 foot? I thought that was bigger. That's fine. He was quickly killed in the mid-2000s. Okay, yes, that was. Historically, giants like to eat people, so they were killed off and put into ancient stories that are constantly modernized to fit the current decade. Because there are no giants mainstream, you're not going to see any elves with green suits and green top hats with red hair and pointed ears calling themselves leprechauns with a magic wand living on a rainbow. But wait until the age of Aquarius, when the USA is removed from power and no longer exists in its current form. You'll see all the leprechauns you'll want to see in real life. Wow. So that last part really, really grim for us here in Alaska. Yeah, we had a good run, kind of. It's all falling apart anyway.
I can't believe that they went from Nephilim to little people.
To the age of Aquarius, no doubt.
With a stop in between of two different Native American races. I don't know if that's the right word, but
it is kind of interesting.
Native American beings from, I don't know what they are. They're just from Native American folk tales.
I mean, we've heard like red-headed giants and stuff, right? So isn't it kind of interesting to hear someone was trying to say that there's not only Native American little people, but also or white-skinned, red-headed, pointy-eared little people that were in the same regions.
I find it funny that they've mentioned that they're related to Nephilim, and I think they even mentioned like 19 foot.
Mm-hmm.
And then so
they say you don't really see any 9 to 19 footers out there
because that's impossible. But
well, I don't know if
and
it's
it always
impossible.
has been. Sorry, spiritual religious people from
folks.
The biblical times.
I do say a lot of weird shit though.
And
demons are real. What the sad thing is, if we went back to where the story Nephilim came from, it's probably we don't like that tribe over there. They're taller than us and they're mean.
Yeah, that makes so much more sense. Hey, those people are taller than us. Let's get them. No.
I mean, that's what David did. But anyway, going back to this crazy ass story.
Yes.
I don't know what to say other than this person is the least credible storyteller out of all these stories.
I would love to find that book that this person said was this professor or whatever out of North Carolina was looking at all this stuff and decided to break the silence on it. I would love to figure out what that book was.
The professor that lived in the mountains in North Carolina.
That happens. Hey, sometimes smart people live in the mountains, Christian. It does happen. Look at the, Unabomber? Not to glorify him, but he was also kind of right. Was it the Unabomber?
Was he? No, he was not right. He's a piece of crap.
Ted Kaczynski, right?
Yes, he's a piece of crap.
He was kind of right about a lot of stuff.
No terrorists are ever right.
Okay. Well, that's one way.
If you kill innocent people, you're wrong. Sorry.
Sure.
Sorry, Ted. You suck.
Sorry, Ted.
I hope you suffer
about it.
from the Hat Man visiting you in your prison cell.
Didn't he die, or is he still alive?
I think he's still alive, but he might have died.
I don't look into the Unabomber very often.
He might have died. It's been a while.
It's been a while? Yeah. But no, he was right about some things.
No, he wasn't. He's a piece of shit.
Have you read it? He was right about a few things, Christian. It's fine to admit that. He can be a piece of shit and be right about a few things.
I'm sorry. Technology is difficult sometimes. You can't just get rid of it.
Say that in 5 years when AI controls us, Christian. Say that in 5 years. And then everyone will be like wearing Ted Kazoo shirts or whatever, you know?
What the fuck did you just say?
I was trying to say Kaczynski like 5 times in a row and it didn't happen, so I just called him Kazoo. Ted Kazoo. It's fine. Anyway.
I don't know, man. This story's kooky. I'm glad you brought it in.
It's very... I had to. There's no way I couldn't... I'm like, well, if I don't put this in, then it'll live rent-free in my head for the rest of the time.
And you know me, anything Nephilim, I just laugh at.
I know, you're very disrespectful, but it's okay. That happens sometimes.
Hey man, till Nephilim comes and says hi to me and it's nice, I'm going to be disrespectful. Treat me with respect, you get respect.
Wow, you hear that, Nephilim in the audience? There is a way. Just kidding. You've made it impossible for you to ever believe in this stuff, Christian. You've built your own walls, and that happens. You know, it happens with a lot of people. It's fine. It's a tricky stream to navigate.
Hey man, if you build walls and keeps the spooky things out, life is good.
Sure. Ignorance is bliss, as they say, you know?
That's what they say.
That's what they say. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys in this part 1 of Tiny Little Folklore.
Robin, what do you think of the Nephilim?
Okay. And everyone else out there as well. Not just Robin. Robin, you can tune in or chime in. Everyone else is welcome as well. Anyway, be sure to tune in next week. We'll be taking a look into Norse dwarves, Hawaii's Menehune, and the Slavic Domovoy.
Tricksters galore.
Tricksters galore. Spoiler alert, they have a lot of similarities with the ones we just went over this week. Anyway, hope you guys have a fantastic week, and we will see you right back here next week for part 2 of Tiny Little Folklore. Goodbye.
Bigfoot is stalking by your window. Dogman is scratching at your door. Ghosties are walking up and down your halls at night. And the Hat Man is coming back for more. Your name is Christian. You love a can of beans. And you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong. It's quite an impressive streaky. This song is rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. Your name is Christian. Your name ironically, because the only belief you have can be found in a can of beans. You're almost never right, and now you get roasted weekly. This song is rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. Also ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demon's lonely because they believe in you. They believe in you.